Hello everyone. This is a video review that I am doing on the video game Lords of the Fallen by Deck 13 Games and City Interactive. I will be comparing this game to other RPGs of its type, most notably Dark Souls, as the game was most likely heavily inspired by that franchise and From Software's games as a whole. Jumping right into it, the first apparent thing to me that was different from a game like Dark Souls, where you're put into the game in a character design menu not particularly knowing what your choices are going to bring you in the game. Obviously in Dark Souls you could see a character with heavy armor and make assumptions about this, but in Lords of the Fallen, the choices were much more clearly outlined. There was obviously a case for casters, a case for rogues or roguelike characters, and a heavier knight class. This can be a pro and a con, because consecutive playthroughs you may want to change more things. I have not yet completed the game. I'm playing it on PC. This is more of a playthrough type review as opposed to finishing the game first. But I see it as a much more accessible way of giving new players to a series or a system like this a chance at understanding the core mechanics much more clearly and much earlier, which may negate some of the frustration a player might feel, as if the game were cheating them by not giving them clear direction in the beginning. With that said, the game being so similar to the Soul series, people were seemingly very let down by it. It seemed to lack its own concrete identity, and people would compare it to those games in such a way that it simply couldn't live up to them as having its own strong points and weak points, as they were all just simply compared to other games. This brings us right into the combat tutorial. Directly after the intro, which set you up in sort of a way that you could view the type of world the game was set in, or the area at least, as the opening cutscene did that. I skipped through it for the purposes of time. But coming back to the combat tutorial, it was incredibly well done in such a way that you are given any amount of time to complete it, yet if you already know what the game is asking of you, or you know the buttons, are familiar with this type of game, you can go right through it, and it won't hinder you on consecutive playthroughs. It won't hinder you on your first playthrough. I feel it was incredibly well done, simply based on that. You know, if you have never played a game of this type, you're given the screens in which it stops and waits for you to read what to do, and it gives it to you in a satisfying way of killing an enemy that was stronger than the enemies you will be fighting for the first minute or so, until you encounter an enemy of its type again. The decrease in enemy difficulty is due to the fact that you would not want to have that type of enemy as your weakest enemy. You would want something like this that the player can immediately connect to as being strange, deformed, apparently weaker than the character itself. They seem to be mindless, as the notes throughout the game will make it apparent that some sort of plague or curse is sweeping through this area, or this region in general. And this is good because it gives the player time to fight these creatures and become more comfortable with the mechanics that were introduced in the first moments of the game, in the combat tutorial. And as you become more comfortable with them, obviously you will be able to fight an enemy of the caliber you fought in the tutorial. Obviously without the tutorial,